do we have any apologies for absence? So I've got lateness for Councillor Rajawat, and I've had an apology from Councillor Aqsa Ahmed, and I have apologies for Councillor Dhaliwal. And if there's no more apologies, I also need to ask if, according to the agenda in front of us today, do members here have any declarations of interest on the agenda? Good. And lastly, do members here have any communications that they want to share at this moment? Fine, you'll get plenty of opportunity later on anyway. Moving on to agenda item number 2. Again, it's another notification for you. Then the notice that this meeting is being recorded. Whilst this meeting is not live streamed, it is being recorded and will be published on the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Members of the public are asked not to discuss personal details during any contribution to this meeting. Now moving on to, I'm going to change the agenda slightly. I'm going to bring up the minutes from the previous meeting now, and then we'll come on to agenda item number 3. So if I can ask members to just pull up the minutes for the previous meeting, please. I'm afraid it's not as simple as that. Now, the minutes of the previous meeting, let me just get it up as well. So the previous meeting was held on Thursday, the 21st of November, and it's quite a detailed minute in the sense that there's quite a few updates within it, and I will allow members present, should they want to provide a verbal update on any of the items that affect them, they can do so, or we can have the minutes agreed as is. In which case, there is, from my side anyway, I want to make sure I clarify a couple of things that happened at that meeting, and the 2 issues that I'd like to clarify. One is to do with the cycle lane proposals linking Hounslow to Southall. So at the last meeting, a question was raised about the cycle lanes that are being put into place across London Borough of Hounslow, but in particular the cycle lanes which run from Cranford and Heston into Southall. And a resident raised, let me get the right way. So a resident raised the issue with me. At that time, I didn't actually know the plans which were afoot regarding these cycle lanes. So I said that I would come back to this meeting and give an update. And I do have an update for you. And it's quite a dry update, but I'll read it out anyway. The Council's Strategic Transport Planning Team confirmed that the draft Hounslow Cycling Action Plan established a priority cycle network for the borough, which included routes connecting Hounslow to Southall. Consultation on the draft cycle action plan was held between October 2024 and January 2025. The routes between Hounslow and Southall include Southall Lane, which is currently on site, North Hyde Lane, and following feedback will include a connection via Norwood Road. The priority cycle network is the Council's ambition for the cycle network in the borough, which it will seek to bring forward at the earliest opportunity. The proposed cycle network aligns with Ealing's cycle network plan that includes Norwood and Merrick Road in Ealing. The scheme forms part of Ealing's 25-26 programme, which will include further engagement and detailed design with local stakeholders. I hope that response is sufficient regarding that particular item which was brought up at the previous meeting. The other item I would like to take the opportunity to update on is regarding progress of Clarion Housing Association development on Lambton Road. So those of you that know the particular area, there has been ongoing building works along Lambton Road on that particular site for quite some time. In fact, a number of years, and it's been going on for ages. And I'm glad at the last meeting somebody actually raised the issue and sought clarification on what exactly is going on there and what Hounslow is doing about it. Hounslow Council is doing about it. So unfortunately, the feedback that I received wasn't very, very good, but I'll read it out anyway. So unfortunately, when the officers looked into the matter, the officers reported that the contractor had actually ceased trading. So work was underway to secure a new contractor to remedy some water damage that had taken place during the delays, and the current target completion date for that site is anticipated to be 2027. Yeah. Right, so those are the ones that I wanted to particularly raise with you. All the other issues are, you can find the updates within the minutes. So coming back to members, can I ask you to confirm the minutes are an accurate reflection of the previous meeting? Agreed. And I'll ask you once again, is there any matters rising from that meeting? No. No? Okay, so I can sign off these meetings on an accurate record? Yeah. Okay, so that's that done and dusted. Now on to agenda item number 3, which is an item marked positive change. It's a new befriending service, and I think Mr. Singh is going to say a few words about it. Are you ready, Mr. Singh? Yes. Okay, you want to get him a mic?
Testing. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I won't be very long. My name is Sahib Singh. Who I am isn't important, but the organization that I work for is. So the organization that I work for is called Positive Change. We're a grassroots registered charity here in Hounslow, and we provide a befriending service to people who are socially isolated and lonely within the borough. People are socially isolated and lonely for a myriad of different reasons, whether it's old age, disability. It could just be the fact that your kids have grown up, left the nest, spouse has passed away, your circles have gotten smaller. We're hoping to be able to help. So what we do is we provide a befriending service through volunteers, and our volunteers are DBS checked, reference checked, and then we try and pair them up with people who have similar interests. Again, we're a grassroots UK registered charity here in Hounslow. The service is free, so if anyone wants to either volunteer for us, please do, because the demand is really high. But also, if you know somebody who's suffering from social isolation, please get in touch with us. I'm just over there by the police, and I've left some leaflets on the table. We have a QR code you can scan, or just take a picture of the poster, and please do get in touch with us as well. Thank you so much. Again, the organization is called Positive Change. We're registered here in Hounslow. So yeah, please do get in touch. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Singh, thank you very much. Right, now we're going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is the open forum. The open forum provides an opportunity for residents to share their ideas, debate local topics of importance, and voice their concerns to councillors present and other key representatives of the council. Just read out the rules of engagement here. So those participating in the open forum are asked to note the following. Questions will be allowed at the chair's discretion, and items submitted to the chair in advance of the meeting are most welcome. The chair will normally allow 1 question per item. Items on the main agenda should not be raised in the open forum. And finally, individual cases cannot be discussed at this area forum. Having said that, the open area forum is now open. Do any residents wish to raise any issues with the councillors present? Okay. Mike to the gentleman on the left here.
Oh, hello, hi. Thank you very much. Introduce myself a little bit. My name is Dr. Hassan Mirza. Maybe some of you know me through my father, who was very active in the local community for many years, Abdul Rashid Mirza. So I'm a Cranford resident. I've been for the last 30, well, since I was born actually. Don't want to tell you how old I am. But I've been a resident in Cranford since I was born. And I also run my business, which is my dental practice in Cranford as well. So I know the area very, very well. I don't want to make this into a long speech, but I'm going to just pose my issue. We are, if you don't mind me saying, suffering with exactly what my colleague Sahib just mentioned, which is the issue of socialization and the issue of local communities. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to ensure that the youngsters, our next generation and our older generation are taken care of in such a way that they're allowed to integrate in the society in the best way possible. Now, there's a library, which you all know about in Cranford, which has been designated to be, well, actually has moved now, we've been told, to a new place called the Meadowbank Centre. And this place is now an ideal place for our community centre in Cranford. Now, many of you people have driven up and down Cranford from, if you're going to the airport or if you're going to Hounslow. Often Cranford is forgotten because it's now become like almost like a hotel city, or a hotel village rather. When you drive up and down different areas in the UK, whenever you come to a village, you see slow down, 20 miles per hour, sometimes even 10 miles per hour. In Cranford, it's 40 miles per hour. Get out quick, kind of thing. And we've got to change that, because what's happening is that you don't realize that there are communities that live amongst these kind of roads and these kind of areas. We need to safeguard these areas as much as possible. And what we're proposing today is someone to look at a possibility of that Cranford Library to be used as a social centre, a community centre. And we've got people in place that can start running this project and working really hard in this area. So that's my issue, that's my concern. I don't know, do I have a small collection of signatories from the local Cranford area, over 300, and I'm happy to hand it to my local councillor, Councillor Vikram.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vikram. If I hand you this signatory, there's over 300 signatures there, and something that we've been passionate about and really want to do. I'm born in this area, bred in this area. We want to do the best for our future generation, and everything Sahab mentioned, right, bang on, really good what he mentioned. I'm glad he came just before me, because getting in touch with our elder community, those people are lonely, those people are in trouble, we can do this ourselves. We've got people in place, action groups and organizations. We just need to give us a place, and we'll do it for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right, you've handed the petition over to Councillor Vikram Garwal, who will then obviously process it through the normal channels, but I want to give Councillor Garwal a quick chance to say something.
Thank you very much for the petition. I appreciate it. There's over 300 signatures. You were quite modest in your framing of it. That's a lot of signatures, but that sings to the fact that this is a very important matter for Cranford residents. It's in the fibre of Cranford's community that we all come together, irrespective of our backgrounds, colour, creed or caste. We are one, and that's throughout every corner of Cranford. So I really appreciate the desire for a community centre. I would personally like to give my support for it as a ward councillor. I'm sure Councillor Butt, who's here with me, will also do the same, and we'll speak to Councillor Dayawal as well. So you have our full support, and I think your father will be very proud of you. I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of times. He gave me a lot of support in his time as well. So congratulations on that, and I'll be more than happy to help you along the way to hopefully see the fruition of your dream for the library. So thank you.
Do anybody else have any questions on the open forum? The gentleman, you can come next. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Michael from Heston Action Group. I'm hoping some of the questions I have will be answered in the tracker, but maybe we can come back to that. I just wanted to mention an issue around all of these yellow plastic covers and all the manholes around Heston. I've reported many of them via Fix My Street because I believe they fall under the remit of Hounslow Highways, but many of the cases remain unresolved. We have these plastic manholes or plastic covers over manholes and barriers all over Heston, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. I don't know whether it's cadent or whether it's just that there's a defect in the footway, but it would be helpful to try and understand what's going wrong. One other point is there seems to be very little progress in improving arrangements for waste and recycling and flats above shops. I'm really hoping that someone here today will be able to give us an update on that, and also to address some really bad high fly tipping hotspots across Heston. There is a particular resident of the Ringway who spends at least an hour of her day, every day, cleaning up after people, cycling around with black bags and just dumping them outside the parade of shops at the Ringway, at Rostrevor Gardens. And I think the talk has got to end somewhere. We need enforcement, whether that's through CCTV cameras or more manpower to catch the minority of people who are spoiling it for everybody else. Thank you.
Right, I think you've raised a number of issues. Coming to your first question about issues that you raised at the previous Aera forum. Again, the updates are in the minutes, and I'm happy to go with you after the meeting if you see me. In terms of the issues that you now brought to our attention, again, one or two of them are from a previous Aera forum meeting. But fortunately today we do have an officer available who probably can give a more comprehensive answer regarding some of those issues. But before I go over to the officer first, I think Councillor Garwal would like to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you. As far as the yellow manhole covers are concerned, they are in reference to cadent. They are doing a gas service pipeline through the houses. And if you write to me, I can ask the person in charge in highways to ask them to maintain them and make sure the barriers in the right place so it's not causing any obstructions to the residents. I can do that. Yeah. But I have not had that complaint so far, personally. I don't know about that. Yeah.
Okay. I think I've got an officer responding to the questions. In relation to the thing, you didn't give me the opportunity to, in relation to the Cranford library issue. Right, so as I said earlier, thank you, Councillor Garwal. The other issues that you mentioned regarding waste and the recycling above flats, I've got an officer here with me today, so I'm going to allow him to speak on that topic and maybe pick up fly-ticking hotspots as well, maybe. Okay.
Thank you, and thank you very much for inviting me tonight. My name's Jim Perkins. I'm the head of waste, recycling and circular economy for Hounslow Council. Yes, flats above shops, contentious issue. We've got a whole new raft of legislation coming in at the moment. So for every household in Hounslow, you've got a residual waste collection, expanded recycling collections are going to be required, and a food waste collection is going to be required. I've been with Hounslow about 6 months now, and I've reviewed the methodology used for flats above shops, and it's clear that one size doesn't fit all. The grip bins, as they're called, work sometimes in some locations. What we've undertaken and what we're undertaking at the moment, more in readiness for the new legislation that's coming out to expand recycling services and food waste services to flats above shops, because what we don't want is 3 grip bins. We've now trebled the problem. We are now surveying every single location in the borough of what will work. We know what doesn't work. The grip bins will work in some locations. In other locations, it might be wheeled containers. In some, it might be a mini bring site for the flats above shops. We've got to be careful not to encourage the illegal dumping of commercial waste from the flats, from the shops below the flats. So it's but on the same hand, we don't really want to have 15 different solutions. We need to get these solutions down to 4 or 5 things that work for that bespoke location. The one size fits all doesn't work. So similarly, we could go a near entry system, a mini bring site. Again, that won't work in all locations, which is why my officers are now out every day surveying every single location to see what will work. Coupled with that, because of the churn of residents in flats above shops, council messaging needs to be improved and increased. So, you know, it's looking at what we're not doing as well. We've gone for a one size fits all, which doesn't work. Are we communicating properly? Are we communicating often enough? Because of that churn, we do it once a year, once every 2 years. Should we be doing that every 6 months? And at the end of all that, then we're looking at enforcement of fly tipping. But it's making sure that residents of flats above shops are enabled to be able to do it. It's okay us demanding that you put your bags there, but it's attracting more waste. It's attracting other bags. And moving on to the fly tipping, which is a Hounslow Highways issue, ordinarily that would be a waste and recycling issue. Again, we're spectacularly good at picking up fly tips. It's gone within a day. It's gone within 2 days. When reported. Being so good at picking them up enables people to say, it was gone tomorrow. It's gone in a day. I'm gonna put some more out, and it's gone tomorrow, and on it goes. So what are we doing about trying to prevent it in the first place? These are the key issues. And again, enforcement, better information, better communication about what to do with your waste. I've been speaking to many of you tonight. You know, a fly tip 20 years ago, the community would be outraged. Unfortunately, it's been normalised, and so there's less outrage. It's almost expected. So again, we've got to get back to those, that civic pride. The council doesn't fly tip. The council doesn't litter. But we're spending about £400,000 a year in disposing of fly tips and litter. And enforcement plays a part, but more importantly, we've got to enable people to do the right things. Be that better facilities, better bring sites, better information, better education. So hopefully that's covered off both of your points.
As a member of a Heston Action Group, we've proactively gone out delivering purple bags to flats above shops. I agree with you about the point of communication. There's also an element of people living on the fringes of society. Some of them may not be even licensed or legal, and they don't necessarily want to come forward to request purple bags.
No. We'll deliver them. No, absolutely. Unfortunately, if those grip bins are misused, because they're always collected, either by the shops or by other residents, because they know if they've got any excess waste, we'll just pop it in and it will go. There's now no room in the box for the additional purple bags. So again, it's another blight. And split plastic bags, of course, you've got the ongoing problem of additional litter. So no, and it's another reason that perhaps they don't work. The solution wouldn't be bigger bins times 3 for recycling and food waste, and trying to get food waste out of a grip bin is just going to be, so a lot of time and a lot of effort is going into trying to find a solution.
Can I just stop you there for a second? We're getting into a one-to-one conversation here. So if you do have something further to say, can you give the mic to him so that everybody can hear what he's saying? No, the same gentleman.
Sorry, I was just going to say, please do consult with the community. We've been volunteering for 7 years. We really understand the issues, and we are impatient to see the solutions. I guess the only question I would have is that what is the likely timescale so at least people can manage their expectations?
The new legislation has got to be in place. So for residual waste, expanded recycling and food waste by the 31st of March 2026. So I've got a year to sort this out, borough-wide.
Right. While the officer's up, I saw another hand go up, so I'll take that question. I assume it's to do the same. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Brian Smith, also Heston Action Group. Please excuse me, but I used to be a resident of Chiswick. This would not be allowed in Chiswick, and I want the same facilities, please, in Heston as I would enjoy in Chiswick. So you have a problem, sir. Welcome to Hounslow, okay? Glad you've had a good 6 months. Perhaps we can invite you back again in 6 months' time and see what success you've managed to achieve.
Be glad to update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and gentleman at the front there.
Thank you. My name is Zohaib Bhatt. I'm the resident of Cranford. I have two issues. First of all, as everyone knows, Eid's coming either Sunday or Monday. We actually applied exemption for single yellow line parking, and it's been refused. I know why it's refused. So many reasons. People abusing Cranford quite a lot, blocking people driveways. It's not by the Heathrow Masjid or Cranford Masjid. The event, the council actually give the permission to people perform the prayer in the park. And they should assess there how many people they attendees. Cranford is a very small place, and the two issues linked together. It's been most of the Cranford High Street's been double yellow line, and it's not been consulted to resident or anyone. It's by force they put the double yellow line. It's been raised so many times, this issue. Right. I'm the victim as well. Last year, somebody blocked my drive for 45 minutes. I want to get it out, and people have no courtesy for anyone. And our request to the council, the next year, when you allow in any event in the park, please do the consultation for the resident. If the resident happy, please allow them. We got two beautiful mosques in the Cranford. Heathrow Masjid have 800 capacity, which is they perform 6 prayers in a day. And obviously Cranford Masjid have capacity of 300. I think is manageable. So I'll request to the council, please do consider, and I'll request a consult with the resident before you allow any permission to the park next year. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think absolutely a certain amount of consultation should always take place before certain measures are put into place. You mentioned Cranford quite a number of times, so do the Cranford councillors want to say anything on the matter? Councillor Garawal.
Thank you, Mr. Butt. You're not just a resident in Cranford, you're a pillar of it, so thank you for the matter you raised. I mean, it should have been consulted, especially to residents in a close vicinity of the park, which I know you are one of those. So there's been a clear oversight and procedure there. So I will pick this up, and the head of Heathrow Mosque or Park Avenue Mosque or Cranford Mosque, whatever you want to call it, he reached out to me, and from my perspective, if it's not his Eid celebration or prayers in the park, and now he's not allowed a relaxing of parking restrictions, that's directly impacting his worshippers. In my view, I don't think that's a fair conclusion to make, because especially if he wasn't consulted on the Eid prayers in the park as well. So I do apologise. I'll make sure that it's investigated, and in my view, I'm sure there's a workaround that we can do for Eid. That will either be on Sunday or Monday, as you correctly say, because it's the landmark holiday for Muslims, and the worshippers should not be disrupted as long as they don't block driveways or footpaths or the usual stuff. There should be a relaxation of rules. So I'll pick this up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garwell. Any other questions? Open forum. Okay, lady right at the back on the right-hand side. Could I have the mic there, please?
Hello. Yeah, my question is, I've lived in this area for 60 years. I want to know how many more proposed flats are going to be built in this area. Because all we seem to be doing is building flats, building flats, building flats. We don't have the resources. But even with the treaty centre, I've been told now that there is a private investor, and he's deciding he's going to build flats there. It's just too many flats now. So how come it's just Hounslow, and this is where the area I've been in, that's the area, that's all the flats are being built. I just want to know how many more flats are being proposed.
Well, I may have somebody who can answer that question, but before he does, I'd just like to say that countrywide, let alone borough-wide, or even London borough-wide, we've all got targets in terms of housing development. And it may feel like to you that the area that you particularly live in is being overbuilt, but there are other areas within the borough where also we are heavily engaged with developments. Now, before any development takes place, there is extensive consultation. So you will always have the opportunity as a resident or residents or resident groups to put forward your comments to the planning committee. And the decision whether a planning application goes ahead for any flats or developments like that goes through a rigorous procedure. And when it goes through that procedure, we are duty bound and legally bound to have justifiable reasons on planning grounds to refuse such developments. Now, in the absence of that, then these developments will take place. So it may feel like that your area is overbuilt, high density, etc., and the issues that come with it. But unfortunately, it is not an issue for our area alone. I don't know if you've seen across the borough in Brentford, the number of developments taking place there as well. So housing and housing development will continue apace. We have targets which we need to meet, and I'm just going to request, if I may, Councillor Rajwat to just elaborate a little bit further on that for you.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for being late. I mean, everything you said I concur with. Actually, there is very little going on in the Heston Cranford area in terms of development. There's more happening across other parts of the borough. You're absolutely right, Chair, to say that there is a housing target that we need to meet, but the planning process is one part of it. That's sort of the end part of that process. Anyone that wants to develop in the borough does come and have conversations with me as leader and my cabinet colleague who leads on regeneration, and we have a lot of conversations, not just about housing necessarily, but the sort of communities that need to be built, the infrastructure that's needed, and the contributions that they need to make. You cop across the border from Heston into Southall, and you see the level of development happening there. It's a lot more, it's a lot higher. We actually challenge anyone that wants to develop in the borough quite heavily, and the process of our planning committee is very, very rigorous.
Okay, any other questions from the open forum? I had a gentleman just behind you first. No? Okay. Gentleman at the front, please.
Hi, my name is Avi Chaudhry. I just wanted to ask a question. Is basically this British Airways building, which is on Cranford, in Cranford. I just want to know what's been built there, because I didn't see any consultation around that building. I've been told that it's been converted into flats or something like that. So I just wanted to clarify as to what is happening to the British Airways building.
Well, no. As far as I'm aware, we get notification of stuff that's going on in our particular wards, and Cranford councillors have not had any indication of anything going on in the Cranford area regarding that particular site. So we are unaware about what you're actually referring to. So it probably needs looking into. Has anybody else got any light that they can shed on?
Oh, Heathrow House, just on the edge of Cranford. The last government did relax some of the planning rules around office spaces. It's something called prior development, allowing existing office blocks to be converted into housing into flats without reference to the planning authority. So I would imagine it's probably that, but I don't have any more details on that. I'm happy to look into it.
Right, any more questions from the open forum? Okay, so you've already been, so I'm going to go over to that gentleman over there.
Well, you probably gathered from my accent I don't come from around here. But I've been staying, sometimes, come and see Bill every 18 months or so. And I was saying to the girls when I came in, that path from the BP station to Brabazon Road, it's still one of the most hideous, it goes back to what I was saying, rubbish, one of the most hideous eyesores in your whole community. Now, it's up to yourselves, of course it is, but maybe do one clean-up and then put litter bins every 50 yards. I'll tell you what, if it doesn't work, then you can get in touch with me through Bill and give me a bollocking for talking such rubbish, if you excuse the pun. But I'll kid you not, it's just as bad as it ever. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? It's that's it really. It's it goes back to it's a bit rubbish. Okay, I'll shut up and let you get on.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. The issue that you're referring to will be picked up in agenda item number 6 on the action tracker. Anybody else? Okay.
Again, just following on from the theme of the litter and the problems that that's creating, these matters have been reported, I believe, and I've been duly informed that councillors have known about this problem, especially in Heston West, for over 6 years. Okay, and it hasn't been addressed, and I think the buck has been passed. So I don't know how we put this on the agenda. This is my first time attending this forum, but to the gentleman who's just been appointed, every morning I walk past a rat-infested area where children and mothers walk their children to school, being totally ignored and blamed on somebody else. So it's coming back to the flats above shops, and we know where it is, on Vicarage Farm Road. So I don't know if this gentleman who's just recently appointed, I'm sure you've got a priority list or a hot list maybe, and that might be on it. But I'd just like to say that has been known and still hasn't been addressed. So I wonder if this is something that we could put on future agendas so that we can actually keep reporting on what's going on with this. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, a couple of issues there. So early on, at probably the first area forum meeting that I chaired, I did say I wanted a lot more transparency and accountability when residents bring issues to this area forum to be addressed. And we've tried to develop mechanisms where we'll be able to track issues that brought to our attention. So you've seen a lot happening with our Let's Talk website and the action tracker, etc. Now, the particular issue regarding Rectory Farm reared its head, I think, at the previous area forum meeting, and it's on the minutes. And I think it's on the action tracker as well. Yeah, and so it will be discussed this evening, and you will get, hopefully, a formal response as to what's happening with that particular issue. Regarding the flats above shops, again, I think we did have a comprehensive response from Councillor Gariwal, the lead member for, forget the title again. Recycling, yeah. So, again, it's a semi-private development, but we've tried to bang heads, and we have managed on occasions to get the area cleared up. But I think it's an ongoing issue, and again, I would, when the opportunity arises later on in the evening, on the action tracker, perhaps a little bit more clarification for you from the lead member. You're going to take it now, are you?
Yeah.
The clarification has been done by Jim just now, what we are planning to do regarding recycling of flats above the shops. And we have got a program, and which we have to make sure we completed by 2026, as well as the gentleman from Heston Action Group mentioned. He did mention it last time as well. He just mentioned that we should engage with the communities, and we are engaging with Heston Action Group, and Jim will be in touch with you guys. And I've already mentioned it to Mr. Deo. Yes, and you will be given an update on what the plans are for the future. Yeah, all right, okay.
Okay, so all the eyes are on you now, right? So in terms of this area forum. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Come at the front there.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, fellow Council Councillors. My name is Anjam Mirza. I'm the older brother of Dr. Mirza here. First of all, I fully support his idea for the community centre. I'm with you all the way. He's afraid to tell you his age. I'm 59, coming on to 60. Hopefully, many, many long years. I'm a football referee, and I remember Cranford being a great place, especially the park. And Councillor Vikram has done a lot of work already with the gym equipment there, and lots of other things. But if you look around, there's football pitches in Cranford community here, 10 pitches, and they're busy every single weekend making money. I think we need to do that to Cranford Park again, make Cranford like it used to be in the old days, make it great again, bring the football pitches in, bring the cricket pitches in, bring somebody in to look after it, and most important, put some toilets in there. We need toilets in that park urgently, especially for the elders that go to the park and struggle because they can't get out of the park and do funny things. It's not their fault, of course. But we need to have toilets in there on an urgent basis. And then if you can't do it yourselves, subcontract it so that somebody comes in there, makes money from the council from those pitches to pay for the caretaker. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks for your ideas on the way forward there. And I hope the Cranford councillors are listening and are attentive to what the community requires. It may not all happen. It may not happen straight away, but I'm sure I have every faith in the local councils that they will try to follow up on your dreams and the dreams for all the community. Okay, right. I have one last question, then we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. So I had a hand up right in the corner over there.
Hello. Oh my God, I'm very loud. Sorry. Hi. I've actually got two questions, but I'm going to make them one. So I've had this problem at going to the treaty centre, and I've had this problem in my local area just walking home from the bus stop, which is electric bicycles and electric scooters, and even I've seen teenage boy on a quad bike. Can you believe this? And there is no warning for people like pregnant women, disabled, wheelchair, elderly, even me, able-bodied. There is no way that on a pavement, suddenly swerve and you're knocked over. It's even worse than even a car accident. Something needs to be done. And I do live in Cranford. I'm a local resident, and I'm very, very concerned. What can you do about the safety? And then mentioning the treaty centre, and I've heard people talking, you're creating a lot of flats. So when is the treaty centre in Hounslow closing? So 2 questions. Thank you.
On the quad bikes, unfortunately, our policing colleagues have left a little bit earlier. But funnily enough, I did have this conversation with them because it was raised at a previous Aera Forum meeting about electric bikes on pavements, etc. And it is very much a policing matter, and they try their level best. But as you can appreciate, unless they're at the right place at the right time, in the right mode of transport. So, a vehicle, a car could not necessarily, a police car could not necessarily catch the culprit on the bike. So there's a lot of permutations there to catch these people. It's abhorrent what they're doing, we're all against it. I think we all agree that something needs to be done, but unfortunately it is a policing matter, and the buck stops with the police to enforce such behaviour. I did say I was going to move over. Is it a burning question?
It's just a follow-up from the lady just said about the electric bikes.
Okay, one second. If I'll allow that, just give the mic.
Sorry, I'm just picking up from what the lady said about the electric bikes. This is the first time I'm coming to a forum like this. I'm not a resident of Cranford, I'm a resident of Heston. But I think it's probably borough-wide, the issue about the Lime bikes and the way they're positioned on residential roads. They're an absolute eyesore. As soon as you turn into a road, you just see a big black pole, which you try and avoid not hitting because it's so close to the edge of the road. It's quite dangerous, to be honest, because in the dark, someone like me will probably miss it and, you know, bash my car into it. Not only that, with the electric bikes again, you got children just running around on pavements with the bikes, and then just leaving it by a tree or outside someone's house. They're absolutely, I don't know, I feel it's a waste of money. I don't think they work in the way they're probably intended to because they're being misused. And the positioning of the parking of these bikes are not very well thought through, I'm afraid. They are a really bad idea.
Okay, firstly, can I welcome to your first ever attendance at an Aera Forum meeting. Whereabouts in Heston do you live? Crossways. Okay, that's Heston Central. Okay, that's that. But that's irrelevant in the sense that the issues that you presented regarding electric bikes, the answer still stands. It's a policing matter. In terms of the line bikes, again, we have moved quite a long way since the early inception of the line bike scheme, and there's been several reviews. In fact, there was a review only this year, I think, for the Heston Cranford area for residents to be able to, through their councils or themselves, to present any issues with the current positioning of the bays or locations, etc. In terms of discarded line bikes, again, there is an email site, a website where you can report that activity as well, and it's on that Fix My Street as well. And again, we've been informed that the culprits who do this, when they do get caught, they do get fined, right? So they are getting fined, but there are always loopholes that people use to get away with it, but it's not acceptable. We clamp down on it big time. We're not happy with the way this is happening, and we have regular meetings with the people who have the line bikes contract regarding this issue. I do have an officer here today, fortunately, who may want to say a few more words about this.
Just briefly, Chair, on the issue of electric bikes, Zahir was just reminding me that we recently had a day of action with the police, the Safer Communities team and the local police. They happen all around the borough, Chiswick, Brentford. We had a Hounslow High Street one quite recently, and it was specifically around this problem. And they did actually, the police did on that day confiscate 8 of these. So it might not seem there are less, but it's a bit of an ongoing battle. But it was a really successful day. They went to the hot spots where they know it's active. It's really difficult trying to track it on CCTV. They don't obviously have number plates or anything like that, but they did manage to successfully confiscate 8 on this day of action that we held recently.
And I can concur. I mean, particularly in my ward, when we made representations based on residents' concerns, we had some bays removed and other bays located in other suitable areas. So there is a process for that. The last issue was regarding the tree centre and what's going on there. So I'm going to ask Councillor Rajwat to just give us a background information on that.
Thank you very much. So, residents, you might or may not be aware, the Treaty Centre isn't actually owned by the council. It's owned by a private company, and it is at the end of its operational life. So something does need to happen at the Treaty Centre. My current understanding is that that is a while off, to be perfectly honest. We are engaging with the owners, being very clear that whilst they may want residential, we want a retail offer that works for Hounslow, that complements Hounslow's vibrancy. It is still a very busy town centre. It's one of the busiest in terms of footfall, certainly in West London. And so we need to be sensitive to that with anything that comes forward. I think therein lies some of the problem. Housing makes money for developers. Commercial doesn't necessarily as much, and the quantum isn't as much. So at the moment, we are working very closely and having conversations, but it's for the owner of that site to bring forward plans. At the moment, there aren't any plans, so whilst we know that there may well be some residential there, we are keen to protect the commercial there and the public realm and make sure that people can access it properly. So there are a number of considerations within that. We hope to have something into planning by the end of the year, but it has been painfully slow. The people looking to develop it are facing the same costs, build cost pressures and inflation that other developers are facing at the moment. But we are trying to gear along so that we get something, because we do appreciate, whilst it's at the end of its life, a lot of the shops are empty there now. And so it is looking like a bit of a white elephant in the middle of the town centre, and we're very cognizant of that. And that should spearhead more of a redevelopment of the high street more generally as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Rajavat. Right, that brings us to the end of the open forum, and I need now to move swiftly on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item number 5, which is the health and well-being strategy. I'll let the officers introduce themselves, but before they do that, I just want to pass it over to Councillor Lily Bath, who is the Cabinet Member for this portfolio.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. So I'm Councillor Lily Bath, and I'm a councillor in the Bedfont area. And in case you're wondering why I'm here in Heston, I'm also the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Public Health and Health Integration. And public health comes under my responsibility, and we are currently renewing our health and wellbeing strategy. So what we really want to do today is hear from you about how you can shape our health and wellbeing strategy, which is up for renewal. So a health and wellbeing strategy is like our local plan for the area, for the borough, in terms of how we work as a council with the NHS, with local community organisations and yourselves in terms of implementing health and well-being of our communities. And that's just not physical health, but mental health well-being as well. So, I mean, it's interesting, earlier on today, we've heard quite a lot about social isolation, activity, making places, available for people to be fit and healthy. And I think those are the sort of conversations that we really want to hear today, so that we can feed into this strategy. Because although the strategy is around our direction of development over the year, we also want to hear about the wider well-being. So we want to hear about not just your experience of health services, but about how we together can make Hounslow a much healthier place to live in. You're going to hear some presentations from, I've got Kelly O'Neill, who's the Director of Public Health, and Stephen Forbes, who's the Executive Director of Children and Adults. And they're going to give you a presentation which is going to be around local health and statistics in this area and how it compares to the borough as a whole. So you'll get an opportunity to ask questions, but it's really to hear from you as to how you think you could feed into the strategy. But I want you to, it's important to think about health and well-being in a wider sense as well, because I think that's really important, and I think we've heard some of that today here. But okay, I think that's all I'm going to say, but I'm going to pass over to Kelly first, is it? Yeah.
Thank you very much for having us. As Councillor Bath has just said, we refresh this strategy every 3 years, and I think it's fair to say the last refresh was just after COVID, and we followed quite a traditional way of looking at health and well-being. And while we went out for consultation, we didn't really do it in person, and probably didn't do it sufficiently to really properly represent the whole community. So what we've done is for the last few weeks, we've been going around to various area forums around the borough just to ask people what their views are, what's important about health and well-being, and actually just to sort of take a note of the things that people have said. And so when we start thinking about what the priorities are, we include all the things that you say rather than what we say as sort of health professionals, because our interpretation of what's important will be quite different to yours. And this is your health and wellbeing strategy, and it's your opportunity to have your say. And I have taken a note of all the things that have been said this evening, because many of the sort of conversations have been focused around health and wellbeing and are really important, and they have come up before. So what I've started to see from the conversations is there's quite a pattern of what people think are important. So, as Councillor Bath has said, what we've done for different area forums is to look at some health needs in Heston and Cranford, and we've compared that to the rest of the borough. And then I've sort of had a look at sort of 3 age groups: children and young people, working age adults, and our older population, and looked at the recorded levels of the 5 top health conditions. Now the caveat with that is that it's based on recorded information. So some of the things that have kind of risen to the top are probably not the things I would have expected, but it's to stimulate the conversation. It is not to do anything but to stimulate the conversation. So let's kick off. This is quite a busy diagram, and what this aims to do is set out what drives health and well-being. Now, many of you will want to talk about access to primary care, and we know that that's a problem. Primary care being pharmacy services, GPs and dentists. And we know that fundamentally that there are big problems in accessing those services. It predates COVID and it's still a problem. But also what I want you to sort of to think about is that health and well-being is very much driven by the environment in which you were born, the environment in which you live, and the environment that you live right up until the end of your life. So things like social mobility and being able to sort of develop and have a healthier life outcome is very much dependent on the environment in which you live. Okay, so one of the things that just to point out is that we've talked about housing. Now, if there was one thing that was fundamentally important to improving health and well-being, the number one priority is that people would have a roof over their head. And not to be homeless, not to be in a temporary accommodation, but far too many people are. So while I get the point that's been made about the number of flats being built, there are a significant proportion of this population in the whole of London and in this borough who do not have access to a safe, warm home. And that's really important. Other things such as education and good schools, and sort of green spaces and the ability to have active travel are really, really important. And one of the things that is really difficult in this area that we'll see is the levels of obesity of children and the levels of obesity for adults. And when we look at the picture of London about where the hotspots are for high levels of obesity, what we see is the outer London boroughs have significantly higher levels of both of those than the inner London boroughs. And that's because the inner London boroughs have access to much better transport systems and actually much better access to that healthy, active travel. The other part of that I really want to pick up is the importance of social networks, feeling included in society. And obviously we had a discussion about positive change and about loneliness and social isolation. Now, if you do not have good relationships, or you do not have someone who's supporting you and someone who loves and cares about you, and it's the same if you don't have anyone that you can love and care for, your life expectancy and your ability to have good physical and mental health is really, really much lower. Okay, so that feeling of being part of a society, that feeling of being somebody that is recognised as important by other people is fundamentally a real driver of health and social care, and that cannot be, the level of importance of that cannot be underestimated. So as I said, these are a few proxy indicators, which I mean we're looking at kind of social indicators and health indicators. And as I said, this is comparing Heston and Cranford area with the rest of the borough. And as pointed out, the environment in which people live and the sort of infrastructure is much, much more important than access to health services when you talk about prevention and living a healthy life. So when we look at the number of overcrowded homes, now overcrowded homes is defined as whether you have the right number of bedrooms for the number of people that live in your house, and you can cut that in a number of ways. But overall in Hounslow, 14.6% of homes are overcrowded. In Heston and Cranford, that's 20%, so it's significantly higher. When we look at the number of homes that lack central heating, it's always a surprise when there are homes that lack central heating, but it's pretty comparable. So 2.3% of homes in Cranford and Heston lack central heating compared to 2.2% in the rest of the borough. When we look at economic health, universal claimants is the benefits that people have if they're on a low income or if they are unemployed. The average is 141 people per 1,000 population for the borough, and there's 158.8 in Heston and Cranford. When we look at crime is quite a lot lower in Heston and Cranford. It's 75.6 per 1,000 population compared to Hounslow at 86. When we look at access to green spaces, and we've talked about Cranford Park, the ability for people to access green spaces and the importance of green spaces on physical health and well-being is really important. So you're walking 58 metres further, which is quite different because actually green spaces are pretty accessible, but it's a little bit further. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be walking there, it's just a little bit of an extra leg push to get to it. And going back to what I was saying about obesity in central London, access to healthy access to sort of public transport and that kind of healthy active travel. The public transport accessibility level is a 0 to 6 score, and it's for London. So central London is 6. It means we've got really, really good transport infrastructure. 0, and which we do have 0 in the borough, is absolutely, it's completely lacking. And the level for Hounslow is 2, which means it's fair to middling. It's not great, but you've got the same access to that level 2 here that we have across the rest of the borough. So it's not great, but it's the average for the borough. When we look at air quality, now this is a thing that people talk about a lot. The whole of London is what we call an air quality management zone, which means that the whole of London has relatively poor levels of air quality. And that's really unsurprising. You've got the level of vehicles that are going through the airport. We've got big sort of significant A roads and M roads around this area. So you would expect that level to be a little bit higher. When you look at this area for both particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide, both of which are caused predominantly by vehicle emissions and cause respiratory problems, shortness of breath, wheezing, and can exacerbate asthma, you're looking at pretty comparable levels here compared to the rest of the borough. The more that you're closer to a main road, the higher those levels are going to be. These are picked up from about 7 different air quality testing stations that are around the borough, and we just compare that over the course of the 12 months, looking for peaks and troughs of pollution. Now, dividing the borough into 3 age groups, looking at Heston and Cranford for children, young people aged 0 to 17. Again, when we look at if you look at the blue bars, that's Heston and Cranford. The orange bars are the rest of Hounslow. When you look across those levels, what you see is high levels of asthma, relatively comparable levels of recorded autism, high levels of children with learning disabilities, lower levels of children with ADHD, and sort of a comparable level of young people with anxiety. I would say that some of those might be under-recorded, but this is the information that we currently have. The other area that we looked at is children's obesity. This is a perennial thing that people keep asking about, and what we have in the borough is our levels of obesity for children aren't particularly bad. okay, in general. So in Heston and Cranford, we've got more underweight children compared to the Hounslow average. We've got fewer children who are overweight, but we've got slightly more children who are obese. This is taken from the National Child Measurement Programme, which has 2 milestones of weight and height measures for children when they're in school. One is in reception class. These are the 4 to 5-year-olds. And what we're seeing here is a pattern which is similar across the country. So what we see is sort of still too many children who are an unhealthy weight. But the biggest thing we see is when you get to year 6, which are 10, 11-year-olds. And what we see there is a significant proportion and a significant indifference in the number of children who are in those groups. So don't be put off by the size of those bars. If you look at that sort of that obese level, we're looking at roughly about just over 10% of children in Heston and Cranford are obese. And when we get to that year 6, we're looking at about 27%. So it's a massive increase. Okay, so one of the things that we've been trying to look at is what creates that difference. And obviously when children get a little bit older, they start making some decisions about their own food. They start making decisions about their physical activity. Now, one of the things we don't do, those are the only 2 milestones, so year R and year 6. If we were to look at 15-year-olds, especially girls, that would be simple in comparison. We would see really, really high levels because we know that particularly teenage girls will start to, their physical activity will reduce, and that level of obesity is much, much higher. And obviously that has implications, if you look forward, about sort of fertility and sort of healthy childbirth. And that's really important. When we look at the 18 to 64, the working age adult group, we see lower levels of smoking. And one of the things that I've been challenged about all the time is, the level of sort of smoking that we have in the borough. And the level of smoking really has gone down. But the people that are smoking are long-term. These are every single time we get someone to quit smoking is like a major celebration. It's really hard work. So fewer people in Heston and Cranford smoke compared to the rest of Hounslow. But more people are obese and more people have non-diabetic hyperglycemia. That's pre-diabetes. So that's pre-diabetes indication. And more people have high blood pressure, hypertension, and more people have diabetes. Now, you would expect some of those, particularly the diabetes, because it's a diverse population compared to some of the other areas of the borough. So that's unsurprising. But again, these conditions and managing these conditions are really important, because when we start looking at sort of older age and the ability for people to live longer lives, but longer lives in a healthier condition, the fact that we've got lots of people in this particular age group with those long-term conditions really is a concern for that older age group. So when we look at the older age group, the 65 plus, what we see is quite a significant increase in the number of people who have high blood pressure and the number of people with diabetes and non-diabetes and obesity and coronary heart disease. So what this is saying is that people in Heston and Cranford have considerably, are more unhealthy compared to the rest of the borough. Now, what I didn't say right at the beginning in that kind of infographic is that one of the things that's missing from that infographic is the level of income that you have. And the wealthier you are at population level, the healthier you are. And that is not just an issue for this borough, it's an issue across the country. So when you look at deprivation, the higher the deprivation, the poorer the health in a population. And I'm going to leave that there and pass over to my colleague Stephen.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly has stolen one of my 2 bits of thunder, so I'll start with the bit that she has stolen. 2 things are true. The amount of money you have in your pocket impacts your general health and well-being. And the other thing that's true is how healthy you are from birth, and actually pre-birth, to your early years into your childhood lays the foundation for how healthy or unhealthy you will be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s. Those 2 things are true. Kelly's the public health expert, I'm not. She would be able to run off huge amounts of statistical data and studies that evidence those 2 things. And to try and put this into context and pick up a little of what Councillor Bass said about why is it important to have a conversation with you and why is it important to think what we can do in your local community about this, is I use the example of an average child in Hounslow. So I start off with the first thing, which is money. The average wage in London is £65,000 a year. For all the people that live in London, £65,000 a year. It's higher for men at 76,000 and it's lower for women at 53. Nationally, the average wage is £37,000 a year. We are the second lowest wage economy in London. Only the people of Barking and Dagenham earn less than the people of Hounslow. And the average wage in Barking and Dagenham is £34,000 a year, and in Hounslow it's 38. So those other people who are earning above that Hounslow level have, in essence, to put it simply, more money left in their pocket at the end of the month when they've paid rent, mortgage, living costs, etc., heat, etc. They have more money and they're able to make better choices about health and well-being. Things like the kind of food you buy, the kind of entertainment and exercise you have, your social connection. All of those things impact on your health. Now, what enables you to gain that kind of wealth is, as Kelly said, education. And it's right back to early years. And what Kelly didn't put up on the slide is the other fact that I bring, which is on average 20 to 25% of children in Hounslow, and it varies a little across the borough, but not hugely, when they present at reception class at school, are not what we classify as ready for school. That's not that they're not ready to learn, they're not ready for school. And that's simple things like being able to sit still and pay attention, to be able to share and engage with other children, to be able to be toilet trained, to be able to participate, to be able to explain themselves and articulate their choices and options. And what our schools have to do is spend about a first year to 18 months getting those children ready for school, in school, to be ready to learn. So they fundamentally, the children of Hounslow, 20 to 25% of them lose about a year to a year and a half of their education and learning purely because they come to school not ready for school. Now the good news is that in general our children, and they've improved over the last 3 years, attain or progress, and that's when you basically do your GCSEs, there's a national measure then, they attain or progress at or above national level. So our children make that up. They gain. The other thing that we don't quite understand is that our young people, so from about age 18 to 25, when it comes to securing what's classified as your first good job, so we've all had experiences, probably in our youth, I certainly did, of doing part-time work or weekend work or a job you did because you hadn't quite worked out what you wanted to do, so you did whatever job was available. They're just your jobs. Your first good job is the one you stick with, which is potentially the one that sets off your career, and there's a national measure for that. Our young people in Hounslow take twice as long as all the other young people in London to secure that first good job, and we don't really understand why that is. So from that pre-birth, underweight, coming to school not ready for school, gradually making it up, progressing and attaining, but not securing their jobs, what we're seeing is that our young people are not, in essence, managing to capture the opportunities, let alone that this city offers. And they're not as competitive in terms of that fundamental job market where they could secure better income for themselves. So that kind of puts it into context. So one of the things I would say is, whilst, as Councillor Bass said, we're absolutely open to hearing about the issues of access to hospital and GPs and dentistry and the services that I run in adults and children's and schools and whatever. What's really important is potentially, I think, picking up from yourself, gentlemen, what could be done here in this community, in streets, in families, to defeat that disadvantage that our young people experience that impacts on their health and well-being lifelong. Now, you could say to me, and rightly you could, that there should be a service for that. We have loads of services. So we have 3 family hubs, we have 11 children's centres, we have lots of schools that have extended offers where we're actually doing that kind of work with young children to, in essence, to progress them. But what needs to happen is a bit more than that, and it isn't a service. It's in essence what could happen in a family or an extended network or in a community that puts that energy and effort into those young children that fundamentally defeats some of that stuff that Kelly's shown us in that 25-year arc. Interestingly, we had some events on inside the council today, and one of them was looking at what Hounslow would look like in 2050. And it dawned on me when I was sitting there that it's 25 years since the millennium. And I remember 25 years ago planning for the future. So the children that were born in the millennium year have turned 25. Now, interestingly, if we look forward to Hounslow 2050, the children born this year will turn 25 in 2050. And wouldn't it be great if we collectively, over that 25 years, defeated some of that disadvantage starting this year with this year's cohort of children that will be born? And that's, I think, the challenge and the ask I have of you, is there is a service option and there are services, but what could be done in your community to enhance that within your families? And at that point, I will stop. The last thing I will say, because colleagues will run me ragged if I don't, is one of the options we do provide, and I am the absolute salesman for it every time I go somewhere, is the 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 app. If any of you have family members or know people who've got a child or are expecting a child, this app is absolutely free. It's on the council's website. You go, there's a QR code there. Any of you can take it off this one I've got here. Basically, it's 50 things that a parent or any adult could do with a child that prepares them to be ready for school. And an example is singing. Now, you might sit there, how does that help? Singing requires a multitude of things. It requires you to participate. It requires you to engage. It requires you to think. It requires you to think about rhythm. It also requires, most importantly, that you learn how to control the shape of your mouth. And what we find for a lot of those children that come who are not ready for school is they cannot actually articulate to actually express themselves because they haven't learnt how to shape the words. So that's just an example of these things on here. So I would desperately ask if before tonight you could take a go of that on your phones and spread that, because that alone will help start defeating some of that disadvantage. At that point I'll stop, Chair, thank you, and we'll leave it for questions.
Okay, I think that was a very, very informative presentation regarding public health in Hounslow and how we stand in Heston and Cranford. Now, I'm going to open the floor open to members of the public and councillors. Are there any questions that you wish to ask Kelly and Stephen? Okay, so I'll kick off with Councillor Garwell on my left.
Thank you, Chair. You didn't even look at me and you knew I put my hand up. That's how you know we have the right chair for this forum. Thank you, Kelly, Stephen. Kelly, just seeing you today reminds me of how you were the absolute stalwart of this borough during COVID-19 and you got us all through it. So thank you for that in particular. The statistic about smoking, does that capture vaping? Because your average kid these days, you see them vape and not smoke. And unfortunately now, a lot of us know that vaping, more often than not, is actually worse than smoking. So if it does, I'm assuming it doesn't because you shook your head slightly. So how do we capture that information? Because I think that's vitally important, because we know that it goes from vaping to other things. And that might just be the beginning of a very bad habit.
Yeah, so vaping is a little bit of a concern. There is no data. There's no data that's being collected about the levels of vaping, not least because I don't think that we would capture an accurate picture. So just to be really clear about smoking and vaping, smoking is very, very bad for you. It's the single most modifiable factor that affects, that leads to poor health. Okay, it's the number one. So vaping is a harm reduction approach. So if you're smoking, vaping reduces your harm. So if you're already a smoker, going to vaping as an alternative is the right thing to do. However, if you are a non-smoker and if you're a child, vaping is really bad for you. Okay, so while it's a harm reduction for those people who are smoking and it's a step down, and is helpful to help people quit, children should not be vaping, and anyone who doesn't smoke should not be vaping either. Now, one of the things that we have got is that the government has given quite a significant amount of money to local areas in order to tackle not just smoking, but vaping. So that 5-year money, that's sort of being led by the Chief Medical Officer as part of his real ambition to reduce smoking. And again, going back to that comment I made before, is that we've done a lot of work over probably the last 20 years to reduce the levels of smoking. And for many of us who were around sort of in the sort of 70s and 80s, smoking was really, really prevalent. It was really common to see people smoking, and it's often felt that the majority were doing it. So every time we get someone to quit now, it's a really important milestone. So what we're doing with this money is increasing the number of stop smoking advisors for adults, so more and more quits per year, and really holding those services to account that we've given the money to. And the for children is really focused on school-based health activity, and really focus on sort of giving sort of health education to children about the sort of the health harms that are caused by vaping, and the importance of really being able to manage peer pressure, because we know that vaping is particularly common when you start getting groups of people. It's going to be a long haul because it's seen as super cool. Don't know why, never been a smoker. I'm sure there's a reason why young people feel that way, but that education is about tackling that, and we're trying to run that through all of our services and support schools to tackle it. But again, it's about one of those things that children, young people are doing lots of things that are not particularly healthy, and this seems to be, for the last few years, seems to be the new unhealthy thing on the block, which we're trying to stop. But again, it's a challenge.
Councillor Girl, are you happy with that response?
Just a very small supplementary, thank you, Chair, conscious of time. I guess this is directed a bit more towards Stephen as well. I mean, I think the underlying theme within these statistics is that the more we go towards a digitalised society, and the more young kids are introduced to devices, whether it's a phone, tablet, what have you, the higher obesity we'll have. We've seen, adolescents grip this nation for reasons that are very important, not just about masculinity, but other issues as well. So is there a way that we're sort of capturing that? And what is our stance on banning phones in schools in this borough? And how do we adopt that, or how do we police that approach if we do ban devices?
Okay, so 2 parts there. I'll deal with the first bit first. Things like obesity are unbelievably complex. I mean, it would be just bad for Kelly and I to sit here. There is one simple solution to obesity. There are multiple solutions, issues behind obesity. It's about diet choice, it's about time, it's about money, it's about access to good quality food, it's about the attraction in terms of the availability of not good quality food. So good thing that the council has done recently has pushed through its ban on advertising of poor quality food on its own sites. That doesn't mean it stops it elsewhere around the borough, and Kelly will absolutely say that if you move into areas where it's a bit more deprived, you suddenly see a significant increase in the amount of advertising of fast food. So there's a whole load of things. I think the worry about many of the things our younger people are facing that takes them into adulthood, which is obesity, and mental well-being and mental health, are incredibly multifaceted. I'm not one that immediately condemns technology. I think technology managed effectively can enable children's learning. But the problem is when it starts to take over or begins to supplement social interaction. We all learn how to conduct ourselves by, how many of us went to nursery or the equivalent? I remember nursery. I'm 60, but I remember nursery. I have very fond memories, or not fond memories, of nursery. It enables you to learn to interact, make friends, share, know how to regulate your own behaviour. Technology doesn't. In fact, sometimes technology exacerbates it. One of my good friends, his brother has a 7-year-old. They're beginning to get really worried about his behaviour because he's spending hour upon hour inside an iPad watching Japanese anime games, and when he does put the iPad down, he starts to act out the fighting and violence. And he gets very aggressive. And that's the sort of thing that worries me. Whereas if you're doing some supervised technology stuff, it can be fantastic. Schools use technology for kids to learn. In terms of the school bans, I always go, 25 years ago, the person doing my job would have had the ability to direct schools to do things. Because of government policy over 25 years, I no longer have that responsibility. The responsibility for implementing a ban or a control on mobile phones sits with the school governing body and the head teacher. There is no national statutory legal guidance for them to work to. It is very much up to the local school to determine whether or not they try to put in place a ban or they control the use of phones. I would personally, if I had the authority, require our schools in Hounslow to put phones aside at the beginning of the teaching time and put it, not take it. I think you cause more problems. I've seen one example where children, if they were coming in with a phone, it was taken away and it wasn't returned. It was technically confiscated for a week. I think you create real problems with that. But when the lesson starts, the phone goes away and it doesn't come out until the lesson is ended. And potentially at break times, some schools have put limitations on the use of phones at break times. And if that's manageable in your school, I would also probably say that's a good idea.
I'm mindful of time as well, so Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Chair. You have noticed me. I was trying to get in very much earlier to support Dr. Mirza, because you actually raised a very good point, which is directly linked to what Kelly and Stephen, and also the other presenter, Sahib, was saying. Unfortunately, he did a very quick gallop through the befriending side of things, but these are key elements of a well-being, mentally alert person. If we, as a local authority, give that full-time support, the community centre side of things is just not a community centre, but you and I know in terms of the overall health and well-being that those people who are elderly and even young who are engaged and are fully supported, they do very well throughout their life, but also in the older years. Some of the issues that you brought up, like, diet. Well, the fundamental problem is, in Hounslow, we suffer from a low income bracket. So we're already starting from a very low point. So it doesn't matter how much further you go up. No matter how far you go up, you'll not still be able to catch the rest of London. And that's why our youngsters are finding it very difficult. The quality of jobs that we're getting are warehouse related, are all around Heathrow. It's the one of the largest employers. Our problem is trying to get very good quality jobs into Hounslow. I don't see the council helping very much, and I know the leader's here and he will disagree with me, but on the Borough Council on Tuesday, I did state on their transport policy that they didn't go far enough. And the reason being, when you got nitrogen dioxide and you got PM10s and PM2s, Canadian studies have shown, and I'm sure you're well versed with those, that anybody that lives within 100 meters of a major arterial road or line of communication, they are most likely in the older years to suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's. If you don't believe me, please do look it up. Because we in Hounslow, and particularly these people in Cranford, they've got 3 or 4 major arteries, right, going through the center of their village. And that's why a lot of problems in Cranford exist. I don't see any way that they're overcoming. Okay, sorry, I'm being pushed by the chair because he's under manners to not allow me to speak. So what I'm going to wrap up early is that how is it that we are pushing out presentations, which I absolutely commend you for, but yet there is a great disconnect between what the council is saying and what the council is actually doing. How are you overcoming those particular problems?
Right, if I may interject there, because I think although Councillor Mann feels very, very passionate about this area of activity, I think your presentation alluded to most of the stuff that he regurgitated. So I don't think we need to have a further response on that. I wasn't trying to curtail your intervention or your request. I was just trying to be mindful of the fact that we're running short of time, and I just wanted you to just wind it up. That's what I meant. I was not trying to shut you down. So on that basis, we're going to move ahead, and again, I'm mindful of time. I'm trying to take questions from the open forum now. So chap at the back first, and then chap at the front. Can I just request again, just to make the questions to the officers very, very concise, please, and officers, if you can give a concise response back.
I just wanted to ask, I mean, prevention is better than cure, so a lot of the data that you highlighted, while it's interesting, what I'd like to understand is, Councillor Mann pointed out that we're in an area of deprivation in terms of income. I don't think that in itself should stop us from being ambitious. We just need to be more creative about how we go about overcoming those challenges. The one encouraging thing about Heston and Cranford is that it seems to have come alive in the last 5 or 6 years. There is community gardens. There are people volunteering at an unprecedented level. And I think that there's a great deal that can be achieved by working closely with schools, many of which have got gardens in the primary schools. Heston Primary was rebuilt about 10 years ago. It has a beautiful outside learning space, which is woefully underutilised, and I know that because I walk by it almost every day. So challenges should be placed upon school leadership teams to ensure that the facilities that were built are actually being properly utilised. That's the first thing. Second thing is, how does the 15-minute strategy feed into the kind of things that you're trying to achieve? So if we have a cycle lane that could be going all the way up Heston Road from Hounslow to Southall Broadway to the Elizabeth line, what are we doing to get people on bicycles? Surely we can have schemes whereby you can bulk buy a couple of thousand bicycles at better rates, and people are encouraged to sign up to those and be able to use them. The PTOL rating that you referred to stuck out in my mind, and I looked up the TfL website today. Many areas in Heston and Cranford have a PTOL rating of 0 or -1A or 1B. I don't recognise the 2. I think it looks optimistic for this area. So that is bad, but the flip side is that, well, we can actually lead the way and say, well, we're going to get people on bicycles. It's how you tell the story. If you don't explain why you're doing certain things and taking certain actions, then you will meet resistance. If you give people context, they will buy into it.
Thank you, and duly noted. And you're absolutely right in terms of prevention, and I would go further to say that it's not just about schools. I think that the solution is how neighbourhoods and communities mobilise and how we use the voluntary community sector to really support some of these sort of prevention activities, because that's where the sustainability is. Absolutely agree on the cycling. The PTAL is an average across the area, but you're quite right. There are certain areas, when we went to Chiswick, which obviously has much better sort of infrastructure, there are areas of Chiswick which are, significantly difficult to get to public transport. But as I say, I just want a little bit of a sort of focus is we've just done our annual public health report, and it's focused on what we call Core 20. It's the 20% most deprived areas. What we see on the prevention level in terms of health services is that actually what we thought would happen, which is people that live in the most deprived areas fewer of them access preventative services. That wasn't borne out, and it was a really positive surprise. That said, there are certain areas of Heston where I bash my head every year because the uptake of sort of flu vaccination, COVID vaccination and children's immunisations is incredibly low. That's why you get to see Jazz on the hot team on a regular basis in Heston West, because always they have the lowest. So there are pockets within the areas which we target. And we target because the data tells us is that the level of transmission of some things that a vaccine could actually prevent is much, much lower. But really, neighbourhoods and communities and investing in the voluntary community sector from a public health perspective is the key for sustainable improvement in health. Yeah, I will, Dave, definitely.
Chap at the front there.
Thank you. Can I say thank you to Kelly and the team for a very comprehensive and interesting report. My question is on air quality around Jolly Wagner roundabout. I live on Mornington Crescent. As you come out of Mornington Crescent, the roundabout is 70 yards, and sometimes it takes you 5 minutes to go around the roundabout. So I want to know if you've done any quality survey around that area or not. And what were your findings there?
We don't have a testing site at that point, but what I will do is take away your name and details and contact details, and I will ask the air quality officer about whether they've done any kind of mobile testing. So the information that I have is the static points, of which there are 7 across the borough, but I'll look into that if you just give me your details.
See, there's a lot of traffic coming from Feltham, going to Hayes Bypass or going to the M4, and the traffic on this side can't cross the roundabout because they don't get a chance to cross it. So we need something put in place whereby the people on this side of the road can get a chance to go across.
Yeah, noted. And as I said, just reinforce it as you would expect. And the honest view is that where there is a major trunk road, air pollution, the quality of air will be lower. But I will take some details afterwards and link you up with the air quality officer.
Okay, last question. There's a lady right at the bottom on the right-hand side.
Hello. I've listened to everyone, and I'm not going to try and do too many questions in one, don't worry. This will be a quick question. You're saying young people are becoming obesity nervosa. There's other conditions, bulimia and anorexia nervosa. Actually, for example, obesity nervosa is actually a psychiatric disease or medical condition ailment. So and the other thing you said about young people is that they're not doing well because they don't earn enough. Well, actually, for me personally, you need role models, and you're very quick to blame the parents, but what about elderly dependents like grandparents? They can have it's having very positive role models in your life. They don't have to be your family. They could be grandparents, it could be parents, mother figure, father figure, sister, brother. They could be a school teacher even, one school teacher who could make that difference to a child. So I heard what you say about nature and nurture and all that kind of thing, but then maybe in schools we need a counselling service, some kind of psychiatric service, because literally this is an epidemic, whatever you call it, an epidemic, a serious thing that's going to get worse as we get older in society. So this is actually a psychiatric disease. It's not. People think it's just very physical. It's actually it's psychiatric to start with, the ailment, and then it becomes physical. But if they see their grandparents, granddad goes to bingo or grandma goes to bingo, I learned this skill, a real skill, without using the phone, without using the computer or the iPad or the tablet. Then again, skills learnt, good things learnt from the elder generation help the younger generation to really set a very good foundation for the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm just picking up your first point.
So I would say don't always blame the parents and don't always blame young people. It's who they have access to as role models.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and before Kelly gives you, I think you're chomping at the bit to give a response. But before you give a response, can I request councillors, to one of you to move suspension of standing order so we can finish the business.
So I move it, please.
Are you in agreement? Thank you. Okay, Kelly.
I'll answer the first part. That data on underweight, obesity and overweight is not to do with anorexia or bulimia. They are psychiatric conditions, and any child that is experiencing that is the pathway for management of a healthy weight is not through what I would say is a kind of a traditional weight management pathway. It is a psychiatric condition that is dealt with by psychiatric professionals. It's quite separate. Okay, let's agree to disagree, and I'm happy to have a conversation afterwards.
Right, I was quite happy with Kelly's response, but Steve, you want?
So just to clarify, we're not blaming the children and the young people, and we're not blaming the parents. In fact, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to do is acknowledge that there are huge challenges for many of our parents and families in how they can do things like get their children ready to school. It's why we run a range of services. The conversation we're having is there more we can collectively do to support those parents and those young children? And you did raise a particular about why don't we have a counselling or service in schools? We do. There's a mental health team for schools that operates within. Can you just let me finish? Can you just let me? Excuse me. Can you let me finish? So what I was saying is we have a mental health support team that goes into the schools. It's a very small team. A number of colleagues and I would like that to be a bigger team, but it targets those children, particularly the schools and parents have concern about. So there is an offer. It's not as big as we might want it to be, but there is something happening for those children. And for those children that can't be supported in the schools, we have the Children's and Adolescent Mental Health Service, which is run by one of our NHS partners, and that deals with what's called Tier 3 and Tier 4, when children have got potentially a diagnosed condition, and that service then kicks in. The Mental Health and School Service deals at the lower level. So there is a range of offer. Not as much as we'd like, but there is a range of offer.
Right, thank you very much. So the last question from the gentleman at the front, if you can, centre, if you can keep it brief.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelly and Stephen. Fantastic presentations. I'm much more informed now than before I came into this meeting, so thank you very much. Following on from what Councillor Amrit Mann said, and I heard him speaking very passionately for Cranford. Thank you for that, Councillor. 0 to 25, my children are now 25, 30 years old, and all my children, 4 children, have got little issues because of living under the flight path, having these terrestrial roads around. I want to change things going forward for the next new generation, like you said, 0 to 25. I'd like to invite the councillors, Kelly, Stephen, to meet with us on a regular basis, and let's start acting on this now and finding ways to get your message into the community as quick as we can. Thank you.
Right, okay, I think that's the tail end of that presentation, but before we finish it off, I would just allow Councillor Lillybath to just say a few words.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to thank everybody for their input, because this is exactly what we wanted, actually. We've had a lot of conversation about health and well-being, but ideas around not just isolation, but about mental health, about keeping fit, being active. And I think it's important to recognise that although you've had a lot of rich information about health and well-being in your local area and statistics, I think it's important to recognise that the council has changed quite a lot over the last few years in terms of being more visible in the community, providing a lot more health and outreach work. And I think that is really about giving you an opportunity to engage with us so that you are more aware of some of the services that we offer, but not just services that we offer, but in general, how to look after your health. And I think sometimes there's a lot of what can I say? I think sometimes people don't realise that there is a lot more on offer than there actually is, and it's about having these conversations that really opens that up. So I hope this is not the end. This is the beginning, so that you can, when you have ideas, or in your local community, or any ideas in general which you think will help with your own health and well-being, I think it's important to raise it with your councillors, no matter how small you think they might be. So I found it really interesting listening to everybody, actually, and I'd love to sort of come back again. I think we will see and have more conversations like that. Yeah, really good.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that very informative presentation. Right, moving swiftly on to agenda item number 6, which is the Area Forum Action Tracker. I'm going to run through it. I think members here have got copies in front of them. So on the first page, I've got some fly tipping and antisocial behaviour issues regarding the Rectory Farm site. So do we have a council who can give us an update about that? But I think, since I saw a hand go up, also if I can tag on to that, if you may, the future perhaps of that site and how it's looking, because that came up at the previous Area Forum.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll try and be as brief as possible. I'll start with the history of the site. Obviously, everyone knows where Rectory Farm is. It sort of dissects Heston West and Cranford wards. It's a large piece of land, and it's been purchased by a private company. So, to be absolutely clear, again, that entire piece of land is owned by a private company. There were plans a couple of years ago to build a park, because it has been identified that underneath the soil there is a lot of gravel that can be extracted, and we are required to extract that gravel. So there were some very ambitious plans a number of years ago to build a park first, on stilts, etc., and extract the gravel over a number of years. With the pressures that exist within the market, it looks highly likely that that site will not go forward, that plan will not go forward now. So we are in contact with the owners of the site. We are trying to, again, put pressure on them, but they are not in a position to bring anything forward on that site. That creates a converse problem, because part of that site towards Henley's Roundabout is owned by them. So on what we know is the alleyway between the BP Garage and Brabazon Road, almost 3/4 is owned by the owner of Rectory Farm. The bits at either end, so near Brabazon Road and near the BP Garage, are the property of the council. So we have been working very closely both with the council, the landowner, and the BP Garage to try and find solutions. So since we last discussed this at the last forum, there have been 2 meetings that have taken place between the landowner and ourselves and various council teams, and I can give you an update, Chair, on some of the actions that have been implemented to explore the issues of fly tipping ASB along the footpath. So with police colleagues, we've agreed increased patrols. So the police, our own internal Safer Communities team, and neighbourhood enforcement teams have stepped up patrols in the area, and officers have engaged with residents to reinforce a key piece of policy that we introduced as a council, which is a public spaces protection order, specifically on street drinking, which moves those on not complying with or street drinking. Further fly tipping enforcement, whilst I appreciate it's ramping up and there is an ambition to do more of it, one of the early successes is any household waste that we find dumped on that alleyway, especially near the Brabazon end of the footpath, are inspected. They're gone through in great detail, and they have led to 11 fixed penalty notices being issued. And the waste has been traced back to the individual properties on surrounding estates. So we know it's coming from the surrounding areas, and our teams will continue to go through any waste that is dumped there. Improve surveillance. So this is a work in progress. Landowner and our neighbourhood enforcement team are working with the BP Garage at the top end to explore the introduction of CCTV, which would provide intelligence on fly tipping and antisocial behaviour incidents near the premises. Separately, the council CCTV team are also assessing the feasibility of installing CCTV at the Brabazon end of the footpath. We have put a lot of pressure, the 3 ward councillors have put a lot of pressure on the landowner for the removal of general fly tipping waste on the Rectory Farm site, and we'll continue to do that. I appreciate for some that may not be enough, and certainly if that's the feedback from this, we will take that away, but we are pushing very hard for it. Landowner is considering some sort of secure fencing at both ends of the footpath to prevent unauthorised access and further fly tipping. I'll get more details on that as they progress that. And then the BP garage has agreed to carry out regular litter picking in the area between the chain link fence and the wooden panel fencing. There are further meetings. The landowner has agreed to continue the conversation with the council and all relevant agencies, and those meetings will take place in coming weeks to review progress and discuss additional measures. And the 3 of us, as ward councillors, are very happy to bring back further updates. We had asked the landowner to provide a further briefing beyond what I said at the beginning of this. Unfortunately, that wasn't received at the time that we've met. We will continue to push them and ask for further updates. Chair, hope that was helpful.
Thank you. That's actually brilliant. Again, earlier on I said that we wanted to take substantive action where and when possible by the council, and I can see from the report that's just been, the update that's just been presented, it's a brilliant response. It tackles nearly every issue that was brought up with this site, and hopefully we can get it moving forward in terms of redevelopment opportunities. Now, moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's the issues behind Vicarage Farm Road, and probably tagged in with shops, houses above shops, etc. But can I leave that to Councillor Gary Garwal to pick up?
Thank you, Chair. There has been an ongoing issue in the shops, behind the shops on Vicarage Farm Road in Heston Central. There was a delay in establishing the works group to address this issue at Vicarage Farm Road due to the vacancy of the State Safer Communities Coordinator post for Heston. The post has now been filled as of March 25, and the new officer is coordinating and working group comprising relevant services, partners and agencies to tackle the ongoing issues. During this time, reassurance patrols with businesses and residents has been continued. Since the new coordinator started, several actions have been taken, including an abandoned vehicle was reported, clamped and ticketed. CCTV has been inspected, confirmed operational and repositioned to directly monitor the central alleyway between the shops. It will remain there overnight for the next 30 days, and it will be monitored. Missing lines of the loading bays in front of the shops, which were not very clear, have been asked by highways that they be relined. Local businesses were contacted, visited, and request was made for them to move their skips and relocate abandoned vehicles in the alleyway before the London Fire Brigade visit, which is to commence on the 1st of April. The visit will be conducted alongside with Housing Neighbourhood Enforcement Team and the ASB coordinators. Photographs have been shared with the council tax bills and HMO teams to clarify the number of residents living on the top of the shops, whether they are legal HMOs and people who are living there are really the people who are on the council tax. So we can monitor them while the waste which is dumped, whether it's dumped by the residents living in the flats, so that we can monitor that. For more information, if anybody wants to contact, the new coordinator is Tara Doyle. She's from the Safer Communities Coordinator of Heston, Cranford, and Australian Spring Grove. Additional note, 2 fixed penalty notices have been issued to businesses that were found disposing of commercial waste in the household waste bins, and it's an ongoing monitoring process, and it will continue throughout the year. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Again, a really, really good comprehensive response. And I remember very vividly the lady that brought this to our attention some Aera forums back, and she was very, very passionate and very angry about that particular site, and it still is a hot spot. So please keep your eagle eye on that and don't let things fall apart. But I'm also looking forward to more enforcement and prosecutions of the relevant people who are actually doing this stuff. Okay, moving on to the next page, which was the waste collection grip bin service for flats above shops and HMOs. So we've already had a presentation or a response from James Perkins on that, which covers that in its entirety. Moving over the page to our Cranford colleagues. Oh. So if I could have an update, please, on the junction of A312 High Street, Cranford.
Thank you, Chair. This issue was raised at the area forum on 8 January 2024 and has been highlighted at the previous area forums meetings. Residents raised concerns about congestion in the right turn filter lane at the A312 High Street junction in Cranford, causing dangerous slowdowns on the dual carriageway. TfL has investigated the issue with the right turn traffic detector, and the problem has now been resolved. The engineer identified that the detector was misaligned, realigned it, and confirmed that it is now operating correctly. The fault has been fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Brilliant. That's great. So that one it's been ticked off, and I think that'll probably come off the action tracker going forward. Well done. Thank you very much for your involvement in getting this resolved. The next one up I've got, it's regarding antisocial behaviour in Meadowbank Alley. Councillor Gariwal.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. So the good folks of Meadowbank Alley and Meadowbank Way, quite frankly, were quite passionate, as you said, and angry about this issue when they brought it up in previous forums. The lady in particular is not here today, unfortunately, but I'm sure she'll be delighted and hopefully watching this online with the update that I'm about to give. So the Safer Communities team continue to monitor the Meadowbank area, and as part of their routine patrols, identified it as a key hotspot. High visibility patrols have been carried out and to provide reassurance to the public, and additional joint patrols are being planned along the Bath Road parade of shops, including Meadowbank Alleyway. These will involve the police, neighbourhood enforcement team, APCOA, who are the largest parking control company in Europe, and ARC, to strengthen enforcement efforts. CCTV surveillance remains in place with cameras actively monitoring the alleyway entrance. So those are measures we've taken, particularly after they've been raised in this area reform. So what does that actually pertain to? What's the result of that? A recent operation in Meadowbank area on the 18th of February, conducted in partnership with a lot of the stakeholders we're talking about, resulted in 3 fixed penalty notices being issued. APCOA has now incorporated the area into their routine patrols, and further joint operations with the police are being arranged to ensure continued vigilance and deterrence goes on. So, Chair, we can say that this has been rightly addressed, and thank you to the residents for raising this.
Okay, Councillor Gariwal, thanks again to the Cranford councillors for bringing this to a good resolution. So again, back over to you again on the next issue regarding Berkeley Avenue.
Thank you, Chair. It's only right Cranford is front and centre of this area reform, given it's in Cranford. This was a real bugbearer for me, actually, even before I had the privilege of being a Cranford councillor on the campaign trail before 22, which was parking issues alongside Berkeley Avenue, Way Avenue and Bath Road, which have caused problems for a very long time for Cranford residents. So as I said, residents raised concerns about taxis and private hire vehicles occupying short-term parking spaces on Berkeley Avenue, Way Avenue and Bath Road in Cranford. The council's parking team has reviewed and approved the proposal to change the parking restrictions, and many of you will know that from previous forums, to make shorter times that cars can be in these bays, so there's higher turnover and hence less blockage of those bays. It was approved by TfL, who essentially, sometimes unfortunately, it's in their jurisdiction, not ours. They work very well with us. Obviously, we'd like it to be in-house if possible, but such is life. The next step is for TfL's planning team to assess the proposals. They've advised that they've undergone some internal reorganisation and resource constraints, so there are slight delays, but they've assured us that they will process and progress this as efficiently as possible. So please do keep your Cranford councillors informed if there's any further issues in this, and we'll keep pushing TfL to resolve this matter as soon as possible.
Well done, councillors from Cranford. Well done indeed. Right. There's another one. Church Road, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can assure you I wasn't the one behind this planner. It's just fallen like this. So the third and final contribution for me, as you must have heard my voice more than enough tonight, is road safety and environmental improvements on Church Road, right near Cranford School, and obviously there's a nursery there and some industrial areas there as well. So residents continue to raise concerns about safety, fly tipping and antisocial behaviour on Church Road. Key concerns including narrow roads, potholes and obstruction of pavements that pose risks to pedestrians, especially nursery users. You know, we've been told about parents with buggies being on roads because pavements are blocked and either blocked by vehicles, sometimes lorries, sometimes fly tips, and we know that could cause a real serious accident. A borough-wide consultation on waiting restrictions is scheduled for this month as part of a broader review. As part of this process, a proposal to introduce a no-stop red zone from the beginning of Church Road to the nursery has been included. This measure aims to prevent vehicles from parking alongside Church Road and obviously preventing fly tipping. The consultation will run for 6 weeks, and depending on the feedback provided, implementation could take up to 6 months. So my request to all of the good residents of Cranford and those affected by this, please partake in this consultation to make sure that your views are heard and fed into the ultimate decision.
Okay, I've said it often enough. Thank you very much, Cranford councillors, for your response on these particular issues. We're now going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 8. But before I do that, can I just ask Thomas to come forward? He needs to make a plug for some more members to join a scrutiny panel, review panel. Go ahead, Thomas.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, hello everyone. So I met with Anthony Stocker from Heston Farm TRA earlier, and he's part of a new council housing tenant and leaseholder scrutiny panel that's been set up. And he's asked me to say that if there's any resident that is interested in improving housing services and making a difference to where they live, to get in touch with us at engage@hounslow.gov.uk, or you can speak to one of the officers with a purple lanyard, and we'll take down your details and pass them on. Thank you very much. Oh, and one other thing, if I may, really cheeky. There is an opportunity to give feedback about today's forum. Matthew Curtis, wherever he is, puts a tremendous amount of effort organising these forums and supporting members. So if we would need to be able to hear what you think. We want the experience to be really positive and informing and engaging. So the more you tell us, the better we can make the forums and the better we can support the members. So please do either go online to talk.hounslow.gov.uk/HCAF, or you can pick up a feedback form at the front desk before you go. Sorry, Chair, I totally robbed that plug, but thank you very much.
Okay, that's fine, absolutely. Right, moving on to agenda item 8. The date of the next scheduled meeting is Monday the 30th of June. Monday, it says here. That's a departure from norm, isn't it? Okay, but anyway, it's okay. So Monday the 30th of June. And the next item, agenda item 9. Is there any other urgent business? I have not been informed of any urgent business beforehand. Is it short? Very short. Go ahead.
Councillors, that I haven't brought with me any nitrous oxide containers this time. And I did note that you had something in the notes about my nitrous oxide. When Heston Action Group actually did a litter pick the other day, I did actually pick up 2 more cylinders. Have a photograph if you want to see them. Okay, what guys are you actually doing about the nitrous oxide problem in Heston? And before can I also be cheeky? Can we invite all of you along to the Heston Action Group? We're open in Sutton Playing Fields every Sunday. You will all be very welcome to come and see what we are doing. If you want to come along on our litter picks, and I'm going to ask my friend behind me, Michael, to confirm next time how many bags of litter we've actually picked, just for the record. So nitrous oxide, please.
Yeah, so yeah, you're absolutely right. It's in the minutes already. There's an update in there, and I'm happy to elaborate a little bit further with you after the meeting's finished. Right, there is no other urgent business, so I formally close the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you all.